This is a recording specifically for students, and I often got requests for this, giving my presentation through many adult education and continuing education programs from parents. So hopefully, if you can just carve out 20 minutes of your time, I think you will find some of the info that I cover eye-opening and hopefully helpful as well. A little bit about myself. I have a couple of books on Amazon. My name's Tim Higgins. The first one's Pay for College Without Sacrificing Your Retirement, and the second one is Unconventional Investing. I also give talks based off of the information found in both of those books on a regular basis, and you can find my seminar schedule at collegeplusretirement.com. So one of the high-level questions that I like asking attendees at my seminars is, why are we doing this? And you can think about this yourself. Why do you want to go to college? Or are you just going because that's what everybody does? And there's no wrong answers, but what I typically find, at least from parents, is that 80 to 90% of what the answers come back to me are linked to income, employment, future opportunities. Somehow it's linked back to jobs. There are other reasons as well, personal growth, critical thinking, and so forth. But what we also find, UCLA's Higher Education Research Institute surveyed almost 200,000 freshmen at over 280 schools, and almost 90% said their reason for attending college was to get a better job. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we want to focus on that end goal, the job, the employment. What's our target after college? Why do we want to do that? Because college is going to cost money. K through 12, you have the opportunity to go for quote unquote free, but college is different, and everybody pays a different price, just like an airline or a hotel. Some people are going to be paying 20,000, some people are going to be paying 260,000. And that's nice, but does that change your career? Maybe, maybe not. What I would tell you is if you can't afford 260,000, there's other ways to help you get to the end goal. Internships, choosing a specific major, work experience, skills that you develop, personal connections, communication skills. These are all things that if you work on all these ancillary concepts, you can get to that career no matter what price you pay for college. So just keep that in mind, that I'm trying to open your eyes to the fact that, number one, college costs a lot of money. It is an investment. You don't want to get into too much debt, but you can still accomplish your end goal by focusing on some other things as well. This should help expand your college list. So keep that in mind, and we'll move forward. Is college right for everybody? Well, of course not. And some of you may feel that in your gut. Um, when do you want to figure this out? Do you want to figure this out before we actually enroll and start spending thousands of dollars? Wait till sophomore year after you've accumulated thousands in loans that will have to be paid off? Or should we think about this more seriously now? Looking at some of the state universities in New England, never mind the 4-year graduation rate, let's just focus on the 6-year graduation rate. This tells me that for a third or a quarter of the students, college wasn't right for them. Why? Because they're not finishing. And if they're not finishing, that means it was wasted investment. Very poor return on the investment there. So if we can head this off in advance by considering this concept now, that is it right for you, I think you're going to be better off. Now, a lot of people, the answer will be yes, I'm ready for it. That's great. But for a certain percentage of the population, maybe it's not. Can a student succeed if they have drive, focus, and passion, if they dropped out of college or maybe not have attended at all? And the answer is, of course, there are examples of that. And actually, the list is really long, but I don't have enough space to show all the names. So don't think that college is make or break whether you're going to be successful or not. It certainly helps, especially if you want to go into the corporate world. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, sky's the limit. If you want to be an electrician in construction, dental hygienist, police officer, and there's some other professions as well, keep this in mind. Maybe you don't even need to go to college. 27% of people with post-secondary licenses or certificates, credentials short of an associate's degree, earn more than the average bachelor degree recipient. So, if, again, beginning with the end in mind, knowing the career and the direction you want to go in, if that resonates with you, there's a much more efficient way to actually get to that destination. It certainly would help without taking out thousands in loans and racking up debt. So the questions are, where are you going, and what is your budget, and how can we efficiently get you to wherever you want to go? So, after graduating from college, a lot of people go into the workforce. What do employers look for when hiring? The number one thing, according to this collegegrad.com survey, was the student's major. It's great if you went to a very prestigious school and studied art history, but if you want to work at my tech firm, you got to explain to me why I would be hiring an art history major, just as an example. Major shows focus and understanding of basic concepts within that specific field, direction. Some of the other things that I hear from HR reps, communication skills is huge. Just because you can ace a standardized test doesn't mean that you know how to interact with people. And every business is based off of sales and working with people, whether you're working directly with customers or other employees within that company. So keep that in mind and try to work on that. My number one item that I like to promote is internships. Internships shows that you are proactive, that you have a passion for a specific field, and for what it's worth, when if you can secure an interview, this is all they're going to be talking about. I shouldn't say all, but the majority of the discussion, there'll be a major focus on tell me about your internships. How did you get them? What did you do? What were your roles? Did you like it? Pros and cons, and so forth. Now, we don't want to ignore that the college name and say that it doesn't matter at all. Of course, if you're going to Southwest State University in some far off location versus going to Stanford or Yale, okay, it matters. But if when you take away the far ends of that curve and you look at the majority of the schools in the middle, it may not matter that much. And so if you can build on these other aspects, you can still get to your destination and secure that job that you really do want. And there are some other reasons for hiring people as well. Now, you may want to read all of these quotes, and they come from different sources, but I'll just point out two for you. I did expect that having a degree from an elite Ivy League school, being Harvard, would counteract whatever limitations my choice of major, which was English, might have on my post-college employment opportunities, but I was wrong, said Bonnie Snyder in her book, The New College Reality. Finance magazine Kiplinger's in 2012 said choosing the right major and making the most of every opportunity have more impact on future earnings than a school's prestige. Which majors yield a higher annual salary? Is it Group A or Group B? For a lot of parents, they don't even answer the question. They just chuckle because they know the answer right off the bat. But for high school students, it may not be that clear. And I think the challenge is a lot of the students, you'll be asked, what would you like to study? What interests you? And when you're asked that question, what would you like to study? At least, and I'll speak for myself, I actually really do like medieval studies, anthropology, and sociology. Those are very interesting subjects to me. However, if you're going to tell me that I may be making close to minimum wage after graduation because I chose those specific majors, info that we can look up, then I may say, yeah, those are interesting subjects. I may want to minor in those, or I may want to do my own research on the internet in my spare time. But when it comes to a major and earning a living post graduation, maybe I'd want to focus on majors in Group A or majors similar to those. So there's a there are differences in earning potential based off of the majors that you choose. And I just wanted to plant that seed. Now, that's not to say that one profession adds more value to society. However, it should determine, and this is the key, how much you borrow for college. Why? When your parents went to the bank to take out a mortgage, the bank only really cared about one thing. What's your income? Can you pay back the loan? If you're making 10,000 a year and I'm about to give you 350 grand, you're not going to be able to do it. And this loan may go bad. The bank doesn't want that. If your parents are making 200,000, the bank may feel very comfortable about that and are willing to give them the $350,000 mortgage. It's the exact same thing when it comes to student loans. If you're going to be borrowing $100,000 and starting salary of 22,000, just making up these numbers, this is just math. It's going to be very difficult for you to make those monthly payments. Not only is it going to be difficult for you to make those payments, it's going to prevent you from doing other things. Maybe buying a house, maybe purchasing a car. There's even studies that show that students that have a lot of debt postpone marriage, and they actually are forced into taking one of the first jobs that comes along for them. You don't have freedom of choice. You're taking the first offer because you need some sort of income immediately to start paying down that debt. Huge challenge. I'll tell you another story. An attendee of one of my talks said, my nephew went to Boston College, a terrific school in New England in the Boston area, and it's also very expensive. He's a teacher now, and he has, almost six-figure debt at this point in time, and regrets the day that he decided to attend Boston College. So what's not debatable is that Boston College is a fantastic school. It really is. And to get in, it's very challenging, very selective. But for that student to choose that major and that profession and how he financed that was not because he had to take on so much debt. Maybe it wasn't the right decision. So it's not that BC is bad, and it's not that this person wasn't smart or chose a noble profession, but how he went about doing it didn't make sense, and now he regrets it. And that's really unfortunate. So we want to be thinking about a lot of that now. And the reason why we want to is because nobody's going to really share this with you. For the most part, high schools, families at the dinner table, they're not talking about finances. And it's kind of hush hush. The colleges, the prices are listed there, but they're not really putting it in front of your face saying this is a huge investment and having you do the math on what taking out loans is going to cost you in the future. So we need to think about all this now. Now, there are specific majors, and it's just an acronym, STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, that tend to yield higher salaries. And here's just an interesting proof source. South Dakota School of Mines, which strong in engineering and technology, the starting salary for recent graduates is higher than the average starting salary of Harvard undergrad recent graduates. So, little eye-opening, but it's just proof source that majors go a long way in this process. So the website collegemeasures.org is one place where you can look up these statistics, and that's where I took it from. And of course, this is going to change year after year, so double check that website for more accurate data. I know it can be challenging being a teenager and being asked, well, what do you want to do? What career do you want to go into? And it's also specifically challenging because you've been, studying English, US history, calculus, and you're probably thinking, it's somewhat interesting, but how does that translate to being a real estate agent or being a teacher or a psychologist or whatever, an engineer, whatever profession you want to go into? So the other challenge is there are so many professions that they call it paralysis by analysis. If you have too many options, then you kind of freeze and you don't know which direction to go into. Let's try to simplify this process. Let's just choose a grouping. What I find is that if you can choose a grouping, most teenagers or 17 and 18-year-olds as they get closer to graduation know some sort of direction they want to go in. I want to go into business. I want to go into medicine. I want to go into education or the trades. You don't have to choose a specific profession, but just a general direction. And if we can do that, then we can then back into what colleges specialize in that field, and then that college may help you get a better internship in that field, which can translate into getting a job in that field. So I have found that if we, and this is just one slide with various groupings that I find very effective, think about this now. Which direction do you want to go into? That will help us with the college list and selection process. So after graduating from college, the majority of people go into employment in their own career. There's also a percentage that go on to graduate school. If that is your end goal, if that's where you want to go, what do graduate schools look for? Frederick Rugg, who writes Rugg's College Recommendations, this is a little bit of a different perspective on things, and I'm sharing it with you so that you may expand your college list and various options. We don't want to close doors on ourselves. So think about this. This isn't a recommendation, but it may resonate with some people in terms of, oh, I'll think about this differently and think about some additional schools here. Why? If graduate school is where you want to go, they want to see a good GPA at the undergraduate level. A lot of colleges tend to grade on a bell curve, and if you choose your reach school, the most selective school you can get into, statistically speaking, is you're now competing against students that had higher standardized test scores, GPAs, class ranks in general. So it may be harder for you to compete on that bell curve because you're going in, quote unquote, below that 50% line. So let's suppose you get into Amherst and St. Lawrence being a school down a notch or two from Amherst. St. Lawrence might be a place where you can get a really strong grade, while at Amherst being a very academic school, you might be a 2.7 GPA person, even if you study really hard there. If you want to go to med schools, well, med schools want to see a 3.0. Getting a 2.7 at Amherst may not get you to your destination. Different way of thinking about this. From a financial end, and if you go to my financial aid presentation, the, if you want to get additional merit scholarships, you may not want to be choosing the Reach School. So you may want to watch that video and take in. So there's a financial aspect to this too. But even for going on to graduate school, consider that option. You need to be getting a good GPA at the undergraduate level. Harvard Law School, class of 2013, accepted students from 261 schools, including Adelphi, George Fox, University of Dallas, William Jewell. The point being, they're not all Ivy League schools. So if you do really well at the undergraduate level, maybe schools where you got merit scholarships, you can still go on to even the most elite of elite schools at the graduate level. So again, GPA does matter there. Keep that in mind. And I'll finish off with this. So, of course, the applications for colleges, they're looking at many different factors on whether to admit you or not. There's two core driving factors, though, that are emphasized at every school. Your GPA, how well you did in high school, grade-wise, in standardized test scores, whether it's the ACT or SAT. How easy is it for you senior year to bump up your 2.7 GPA to 3.2? It's almost impossible. Very challenging because you've already locked in all those grades beforehand. However, standardized test scores. How easy is it for us to boost those? Let's analyze that. So eprep.com and prepme.com, two great online standardized test prep resources. At one point in time, and they probably still have it, but I just wanted to point this out, they had guarantees that you could increase your score 200 to 300 points if you fulfill their curriculum. Is that a lot? It's huge. It's a game changer in terms of getting into one school and not another. And what I'd also tell you from the financial end, it may unlock merit scholarships, thousands of dollars potentially. A local tutor near me, her average student goes up over 200 points as well. So this is very doable. And what I'd tell you is if you do test prep, um, not only is it going to help you from the admissions end, but it's also going to help you from the financial end potentially. But a little contrarian view that you may not hear elsewhere is I think these test scores are way more important than you're led to believe. Now, you can go to fairtest.org and look up 800 plus schools that are test optional. And I totally feel for those that have anxiety around standardized test prep and maybe you just don't test well. I know that exists. That may be a great option for you is to go to Fair Test and look up those test optional schools. However, if you can test well, it's a key and you're unlocking the door to admissions and financial aid potentially. So, just a little history on why some schools have gone test optional. And I'm going to remove Bates from this equation because they had other reasons and went test optional years before, many years ago. But a lot of these schools, their marketing revolves around rankings, U.S. news rankings, and so forth. And they hire consulting firms to help them move up the U.S. news rankings. And what the consulting firms would tell them is you need to look more selective. And by going test optional, they get a lot more applicants. And when you get more applicants, you're able to deny more people, which makes you look more selective and move up those rankings. In addition, if you're looking to admit, I'll just pick on an athlete. I'm going to call it a football player that may not have scored very well on standardized test prep. If you can then have them go test optional, you can ignore logging in their scores as your reported incoming freshman average score. So that can also make you look more selective. So the scores do matter, and the schools do like to see them. And if you can provide them with high scores, not only are they going to be very interested in you in terms of admitting you, but you may even get some scholarships because of that. So keep that in mind. I think test prep may be the number one financial aid strategy out there. And I'd also tell you that when it comes to standardized test scores, hey, this is not an IQ test. A lot of this can be, again, you can boost your score just through practice, a game plan, time management. And when you're confident, you can have better time management skills. And I made up this equation, but just to give you an example. A student that looks at 2x equals 40, what's the value of x, and has a lot of anxiety around this and doesn't know how to answer it may be staring at this for 5 minutes, and then their thoughts start to snowball that they're not going to get into their choice college. Parents will be disappointed and so forth, and that affects their entire test. Or a student that may look at it, not know how to answer it, but has a game plan and practiced, does a plug and play method, and doesn't even need to plug in all the answers. Plugs in the middle answer, C, which is 10. 2 times 10 equals 40. That's not right. It has to be a larger number. Let's plug in the last one. E, 2 times 40 equals 40. Well, that obviously can't be right. It's got to be in between those two. And that's D, 2 times 20 equals 40. So we answered it, gave a logical guess just by plugging in two answers, narrowing it down and thinking down to answer D. Log it in, move on, feel good about it, confident, good time management skills. So hopefully this opens your eyes to some other options. Begin with the end in mind, think career, work backwards, and also keep in mind that if you do some career work and test prep work, it can go a long way in terms of you getting what you want, which is ultimately what all these talks are about. It's not me telling you what to do. I would just want to show you your options in an attempt to help you get what you want.